Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, buckle up and maybe pack a lunch as we are recapping a whirlwind of a Monday. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks for making us your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. How do we start this thing? Shake off the confusion and the chaos and prepare possibly for a new day of confusion and chaos. We have got quite the wild day to recap from a day ago and some things to speculate on as it relates to the future as we tap into, once again, the pulse of the portal. Coming in, going out, never showed up. How can you miss something you never had? These will be some things that we will discuss here today, Chris. Man, it was a wild one over the last 24 to 36 hours for Texas Tech. Not necessarily all portal related. You had some commitments from other levels as well, but there was plenty going on in the portal also, and we will run the gamut on today's episode to get you caught up. And I'd just like to make this announcement to anybody that is watching the episode. Nobody move for the next 30 minutes. Nobody move. Just give us a moment to catch our breath before we get back to shuffling the deck here once again. Chris, I'd like to, though, if we could, as we dive into the transfer portal, get to, I think, some of the good news of the day. Somebody that dove out of the transfer portal and back into the warm embrace of the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And that was some news that maybe we anticipated leaving the bowl game. Whenever we found out heading into it that Cameron Valdez was going to be a guy that was going to play in Shreveport. I think you alluded to this prior to the game on Friday on that episode. You know, some thought that maybe that would suggest he would be back in red and black this year, or I'm sorry, next year. Let's kick off the conversation there as he makes that official that he will remain at Texas Tech. He is out of the transfer portal and back with the good guys.
Yeah, I think Cameron, what his intention was is like, hey, you know, because when Taj Brooks comes back, I mean, there's obviously not, on paper anyway, not going to be a larger role for Cameron next year. And I think he you know, had the intention of getting into the portal and talking to some of the schools that originally recruited him. I think schools like Utah, like Michigan, and the like. And you know, I don't know if he got any traction there with any possibilities. Is obviously those two programs are. I don't know who else was in the mix there, but I think he just, and he likes it here. I gather. I think. You know, he can continue to grind away at it, and he's got a spot here, and I think he'll have a potentially bigger role next year, and maybe if you don't want to use Taj Brooks quite as much, but yeah, that was good news. And the other one that I thought may do the same thing as Cameron Valdez is Loic Fungi. However, there's a lot that seem to think that he's played his last game, which. I don't, I wish him well. He's a guy that I had liked and admired, and I thought he did a really good job on special teams. He caught a touchdown pass versus Cal there in the bowl game. But you hear a lot of whispers about Vanderbilt and about UTSA being strong options. I think J.J. Sparkman also has a pretty good chance of ending up at UTSA. There's obviously a Jeff Traylor, Joey McGuire connection there with, hey, these are good kids. Hey, man, are these good kids? That kind of stuff. And so, they could both end up at UTSA. But, yeah, it's again, head on the swivel, man, because you're right. As I was thinking about all the portal stuff we're going to talk about today, I'd already forgotten about Cameron Valdez. I was in the rear view. and I'm like, oh, yeah, He was on your team, then he kind of was but wasn't, and now he is. It's just, yeah. So I'd kind moved on from that one. But then that's a big time nugget from yesterday for sure. Because you had a couple of running backs, that one from UT Martin, I think one from Elon, maybe. You had one that guys that you were kind of on your radar and going to visit. One ended up at Oklahoma. I'm not sure where the other one ended up at, but now I think you're out of the running back market from the portal standpoint because of Cameron's news.
Yeah, with Brooks returning, obviously he's not expected to take over the reins or anything, talking about Valdez, but he will have a role. I mean, there's no question about it. So I'm glad to see him stick with it and see how he can develop in year number 2. Okay, let's stick with the portal before we get to a commitment flip. And let's get back to someone that we haven't, I don't think, mentioned yet on this show. That's another tight end in the mix, and John Carlos Miller, and how that then relates to a previous portal tight end commitment and Alex Lyons saying bye-bye. So how do we break down this situation where you had a little tight end shuffling?
Yeah, I think Texas Tech, heading into the game on Saturday, that afternoon, they got a commitment from John Carlos Miller. I keep wanting to say John Carlos Stanton. That's baseballing. Yeah, he's you're right. Although it would be very costly based on what Giancarlo Stanton makes in his salary. And I'll be honest, I wasn't just too keen or aware that they still wanted to add to the tight end room. You'd had, because at that point you'd had, you've added Lyons, you've added Miller, and you had Tharp. You've got Trey Jackson coming in, and there is some concern about Mason Tharp's injury history. So that is, you're just not real sure, how healthy he can be and stay and all those things. If he is, he's phenomenal, as we saw in the bowl game. But it's just it's kind of a gamble, and so I think you're trying to protect your situation there. Jaden York obviously departed. I think whenever he doesn't get put on scholarship, I think he tried to seek help elsewhere. Could he come back and be like Alex Lyons? I don't know. But John Carlos Miller is somebody that set some records there at Elon. I mean, he had a 100-yard receiving day. He's got, it's not like just overwhelming numbers and all that, but for Elon from a tight end position, I think he's done pretty well. He's about 6'4", 240. And the key here is with him is that you get multiple years with him. So that was the thing with Alex Lyons, who you were going to have Lyons and Miller, remaining here on this team a year from now. And that's allowing Trey Jackson to kind of grow up and add some weight and mature and all those things, because Jalen Conyers, who's the huge addition to this position group, and Mason Tharp would have graduated. Well, now you're going to have to, go back to the well, I guess, because I think with Miller added, Lyons is looking for a little bit more playing time, I gather, or immediacy. I don't know. And so he's like, hey, I'm going to decommit. I think that it's a direct correlation into you adding Miller. Was everyone aware that you were still looking for a tight end? Did Lyons not know? Does he not want to be patient and wait that? I don't know. But, say hello to one and goodbye to another. We hardly knew ye. Yeah.
Can't miss something you never had, I guess. And in any of these situations, some of it I don't like as much, or I might feel differently about just as a fan, because I want my team to be good. And if I think a guy can help, I want him to be on my team that I'm rooting for. But I'm just mostly still in more power to you mode, because this is your time to find your best seat that you can. And look, if you think you can get out there and hunt for a better one, or this isn't turning out to be what you wanted, more power to you. So best of luck to you. But wherever that is, it's not going to be in Lubbock, Texas. And I was kind of wondering, I don't know, just the tight end collection that you had assembled. I'm like, okay, are we going triple tight end next year, or how is this going to work out? Because that was going to be kind of a unique situation. So I don't know. That is probably going to be going down as one of the more bizarre turn of events, I guess, possibly in this portal cycle. Not good grief. I shouldn't even have said that out loud. Now what weird thing is going to happen today that will top that on the bizarrety scale? But still in the category of we hardly knew you or can't miss something you never had. a bizarre announcement. It's not all that unheard of to see a commit flip, but I love the announcement and the wording yesterday from a humor standpoint. In Danny Saili, who has chosen to become a BYU Cougar, part of the announcement says, first, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or if you're just looking to elevate your car's game to the next level of performance, they got what you're looking for with roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or design, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. So just head over today to ebay.com/motors, where you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for, and with no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die ride on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply. In Danny Saili, who has chosen to become a BYU Cougar, part of the announcement says, I have flipped my commitment to BYU, ! I was not promised a car, any money, but a chance to grow as a football player and as a member of the LDS church. Now, we've combated fan bases that are large. I don't know we've ever considered having to combat a holy war or anything like that. So something new to consider with BYU in the league, but definitely something that somebody would say if they weren't promised a car or any money. You always want to come right out and say that for sure, just to confirm. But Chris, there's no way to get around the fact that literally this is a sizable shift because the homeboy went 6'2", 360 or so. And I think, even though I was not familiar with him, pardon me, I wasn't familiar with your game, Danny, before I heard of him becoming a Red Raider, I think this was one of the more exciting additions of the quote-unquote offseason or this cycle so far. So I'm wondering, was Texas Tech caught off guard? Was this kind of like something that was building towards this and there was some sense of it? Or what do you make of this sizable change?
I wasn't promised a car or any money. I mean, this is a snapshot of 2023, man.
Really
that's
is.
Either, because I think you and I were joking like, well, that's either your guilty conscience talking about you switching commitments and you trying to justify it, or dang, man, you should have asked for some stuff.
Yeah, you should have.
I mean, they're giving it away all over the place. It seems like.
And what's the regulation on promising a better seat in heaven? Has the NCAA considered that?
Like, did you see, speaking of, because it's in close proximity, I was just there, 6 weeks ago, but did you see they gave, maybe it was the girls basketball team at the University of Utah, there in Salt Lake City, they gave them a choice of some like grand cheap Jeep Wagoneer, not cheap. It wasn't cheap. Freudian slip. Grand Jeep Wagoneer, or like this fancy pickup, and like you get to pick whichever one you wanted. It's like there's this unveiling on the basketball court where they like drop these boards, and it's like, hey, you get a car, like the Oprah thing. And so they're like, ah! And so there's a lot of car given away up there in Utah because I think there's a big-time car dealer that is a Utah alum and all that. So he's done a lot of, anyways.
Like the big red Ford dude in Norman, Oklahoma is like, what the hell?
Hey, Rhett Bomar's like, dude, I still hadn't got paid for that last shift I worked, man. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's all legal, and the Trans Am RIP, it still lives, the black Trans Am from SMU, or the golden one, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought that announcement was, it was very strange. I think Tech was at some point aware of it. I don't know whether that was right before he announced or whatever the case, but this is don't hate the player, hate the game kind of thing. Right. I think that one stung from a standpoint of, because it really fit a need. You now, as much as you need, because we can sum it up this way as far as like what work you have left to do in the portal. do you want to maybe add not necessarily like a fourth tight end, but do you want to add another tight end to the mix? Maybe. But ultimately, this is going to come down to adding big people, like interior defensive linemen and offensive tackle help on the offensive line. That's what you're essentially looking at now. And those are harder to find, I think, because if you look at Texas Tech's defense on paper for next year, if you watch like the Dallas Cowboys recently, the one thing that you're vulnerable with is like if somebody just wants to run it right at you, because there is no Tony Bradford or Jalen Hutchings anymore. Yeah, you have Quincy Ledet, but they moved Amir Washington. He's an edge guy now. That's what we saw him kind of getting after the passer and all that. Spencer and Linton, all those guys. Those are edge folks. You need some bulk. You've got Duda Banks, you've got Trayvon McAlpine. And then a bunch of young players. And so you need old and big right there. And I think Danny Saili kind of checked both boxes there with some bulk if somebody were to hammer. Because think about it. Yes, you're not going to play Oklahoma or Texas anymore. But what is Kansas State going to do to you? What is West Virginia going to try to do? What is I'm trying to think of some of these. What is Utah? What is their style of play going to be? I mean, there's still teams in this league that are going to just go try to hammer it right up the gut, and you've got to have some folks right up there that can withstand it. Quincy Ledet can only do so much, so that's where there's a need there, and I think Danny Saili was expected to fill that need.
So I guess prior to his flip, not that you're ever just not recruiting a position, but maybe you put it off to the next calendar, or hey, it's not a portal need, so it's not high on the immediacy scale or whatever. But so now are we back to, all right, boys, break out the defensive tackle hot sheet again because we got to get busy right now? Would that be close to accurate way to describe it, or how do you see that?
Yeah, because another target that they had been after, commits to SMU like in the last day or two. And so, this is the hard part about, recruiting, is that when you get your commitment at the position of need, you almost feel like, okay, don't need to mess with these guys anymore, but you almost kind of still semi have to. But why would they, like, dude, you said you needed one guy, you got him. What are you calling me for? It's like this weird dynamic, because you can't go, well, we're calling you because just in case. I'd be like, screw you, man. Like, I'm not in anybody's backup plan. So it's a weird dynamic right now. This whole thing, because there's no, the problem is that, I guess the next end of this particular cycle to where, and we're so far away from it. So it's like, it's got to be extremely stressful. It's like, enjoy the holidays, folks, enjoy New Year's and all that. But it's like, you're just stressed, because ultimately team meeting on January, like the 9th, I think that's right. And classes start on the 9th or the 10th. I may be off on a few days from that, but that's really, until that time, it's a free for all. Now, the guys that don't apply are the guys that are going to sign in the morning. The high school kids that sign in national letters of intent. Once they sign that and submit it, they're bound, and then they would have to be let out of whatever. But all the portal additions, they could bail at any point until they sit in a class at Texas Tech. They're not bound to any sort of agreement. And first day of class is still 3-ish weeks away. So, yeah, man, like, keep on recruiting. I like things in a nice, routine oriented and like let's, okay, we're done here, right? That package is wrapped. It's under the tree. We're good to go. Move on to the next. No, it's like there's wrapping paper and tape and just it's scissors just all over the damn place still right now because nothing is for sure.
Yeah, it's like Aunt Bethany wrapping her damn cat. That sucker just bust right on out of there. Then you got a cat running around the house. Sleep with one eye open, I guess, is what you would say to Coach McGuire. And enjoy your holidays and sleep with one eye open because you never know what's going to change when you wake up. the next day.
Or you might get thrown off at Nakatomi Plaza, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I don't really know how else you could so quickly address this other than via, I guess, because he was this was a JUCO guy, right? Saili was coming from the JUCO ranks.
Yeah, and it's this is the part that sucks is that if you get got, because what happens here was specifically with Saili. Guess when Danny Saili swooped in there and went and visited Provo. You're in Shreveport. You're bowling. You can't have any visits that weekend, which a lot of programs did. It was a huge visit weekend for everybody this past weekend, and you were squeezing them in, from like the Thursday to the following Tuesday. Then you're on the plane Wednesday, and then you're going and beating Cal. But he got in there this past weekend to Provo, and they have a big Polynesian, there's a lot of those poly type players that are there, and Samoans and all those kinds of things that have played for BYU, and the head coach Kalani Sitake, obviously, so that maybe that's just a better fit. I don't know, but you just missed the whole weekend of visits, and so you really can't. I don't know when you can kind of recoup a lot of these mid-year guys because the visits times are over.
Yeah.
That's what sucks. And like from a portal standpoint for a D tackle, you're going to have to do a lot of this over Zoom or during the quiet period. And that's going to be the hard part is that, so maybe you have to be a bit patient there. I don't know.
Just got to whisper like a thief in the night, slip in, slip out, do whatever you got to do. But point being, this is not something with this particular position that you can like get back to the prep level and be like, all right, well, maybe we'll look back at some of these rank. I mean, because this guy coming from a JUCO rank, even though sometimes it takes like a year and then the second one's the really good one, you expect impact. You expect minutes played immediately. And so I'm interested to see how maybe they can fill those shoes, if at all possible. Okay, while we're on a big boy theme, let's flip to the other side of the line of scrimmage. While we're on a big boy theme, let's flip to the other side of the line of scrimmage. Last time I asked you about urgency along the offensive line, boom, boom, we got commits left and right. So I just feel like maybe I should bring it up again just to see what I can speak into existence and maybe put out in the wind. I know you're still searching. I know you're still looking, and maybe even, correct me if I'm wrong, but to the tune of 2 or 3 more guys, but specifically 2 or 3 more offensive linemen, that is. But specifically at the tackle position. So are you picking up any vibes that maybe there's something on the horizon or coming around the corner within the offensive line conversation?
You still very much need offensive tackle help. Absolutely you do. And I think that, another scholarship opens up at this position group when Jacoby Jackson decides to go to the portal. He's got 2 years left, and he'll do that elsewhere, it appears. But you already needed tackle help. And the thing is you had addressed, there's a direct correlation in Jacoby Jackson entering the portal and Vinny Scurry and Davion Carter being added because they, I think their thought was, Jacoby will probably get beat out in the spring. And so maybe he would enter late, but I think he goes ahead and sees the writing on the wall. But like tackle wise, you've got playing time available, potentially even, Ty Buchanan, Dalton Merriman, one of these younger kids, Matt Keeler, those are kind of your tackle options right now. You definitely want to add to that mix, probably with 1 or 2 guys. There's a young man out of Middle Tennessee named Robert Porcher that is set to announce this morning. Arizona State, Baylor, Syracuse, Memphis, UTSA, and Texas Tech are his reported options. I think Texas Tech is in a great spot here. So we'll kind of see what we get this morning, but nothing's for sure. I mean, as Danny Saili, they're already making your jersey and, got your locker ready. And what do you mean? They gave you a car and money at BYU? Oh, they didn't.
No.
Okay. Yeah. You just, yeah. So, yeah. So nothing's for sure, man, but you're still on the hunt again, big people. Offensive tackle, and there's still I think the junior college player in California that plays offensive tackle. You'll start to see, and one other name we mentioned, or we failed to mention that it was portal related. Josiah Pierre enters the portal yesterday for Texas Tech. That's a direct correlation, and probably the duo that we had been talking about in Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez. I think Josiah Pierre, maybe he didn't want to switch positions. Maybe he feels like there's more playing time elsewhere, but that's a guy that had one more year of eligibility. And I'll be honest, I'm as close to this. I try to be as anybody. When I saw that he entered the portal, I was like, wait, he had another year?
I'm the same way.
I had no idea. I'm like, I felt horribly embarrassed. I know JP. I talked to him a lot. I just and sure enough, I go back. I'm like, well, I'll be damned. Yeah, he had another year. Who knew? So I think he had the intention of kind of wanting to go to the NFL. Didn't get to play as much this year. Doesn't maybe see that as an opportunity here next year. And so, away you go. But that's just a veteran player that knows your scheme and system that, there's all these little nickel and dimes, man, that you can, with your roster that, who knows who you may add. Edge player, defensive tackle, tight end, offensive line. I mean, palms up. I mean, yeah, I don't, you're going to continue to portal. That's for sure.
I was surprised by Pierre. I also thought his time had come to an end, but then I began to consider what I thought he possibly could have been for Texas Tech. Even if it seemed crowded in the middle, he had been someone that provided things for you off the edge previously, and out of necessity was then in the middle in a previous season. And I'm just wondering, does that speak to something I don't know about what Tech has on the edge? Because I almost feel like there's some help wanted signs there as well that maybe he could have filled, but obviously I guess didn't have a desire to.
Well, Linton
wasn't asked to. I don't know.
Yeah, and Linton is the big question. I think there's some thought that it's still up in the air, which puts you in a bit of a bind. He could still, I think most people internally feel like, oh, he definitely needs another year, but you can't, you're also not in his shoes, don't know his family situation, all that stuff. But, from an edge standpoint, you've got guys like Marcus Ramon Edwards, Dylan Spencer, Steve Linton, obviously, if he is back, Joseph Adedire is an edge guy. They've moved Amir Washington now to the edge, but they did that back in November, and we saw what he can do. So I don't know. Maybe JP looks at Amir Washington and is like, well, damn, maybe that's what made him, just the thing. I don't know.
Pierre became a pretty good player for you. I know he didn't have this previous year he wanted to, but
I just would have liked. It's just good to have old guys around that you trust. Yeah. And it's got to be a two-way street. I get why most are going to say, well, of course you want older guys that are around that you trust that can play, but that may not fit what suits them best either. Like I want to go be somewhere where I can play. I'm not going to sit here and be somebody's insurance policy, like the whole backup plan talk that we were discussing earlier. So yeah, that was another one that just a lot of movement yesterday. And Miles Price goes to Indiana. Jerron Bradley goes to Boston College. Brooke Honore, your backup punter, is gone to Arkansas State. So some of the ones that have departed now are starting to find homes elsewhere.
And haven't seen Monroe Mills pop up yet, unless I missed it. But
no.
And
I'm just not in this crazy zany world. I'm not going to rule out. Do I think this will happen? No. But I mean, I'm not going to be naive to think that you wouldn't, you can't get remarried with one of these guys that have left you. I just am not, whether that's York, whether that's Mills, whether that's, there's some of them. And I think the Mills thing didn't exactly end great for everybody. So that may not be one, but like the York thing, I mean, maybe he, I don't know. I mean, that would certainly fill a need and a void, but I don't know. Maybe
you can't catch feelings at the negotiating table. If they break down for a moment, come back on another day, and maybe the sun will be hitting you differently. And yeah, you can get remarried. Had a cousin that did that one time, and one of those to the same woman. One of those was in the monkey cage at the San Diego Zoo. Made the AP wire. Our family's claim to fame. Look it up, boys and girls. All right, Chris. Appreciate your time and insight as always, man. we'll get back together in, I don't know, about 15 minutes or so and see if we need to do a new episode. If not, we'll rejoin you on the other side, man. Looking forward to it and enjoy it as always.
Signing day in the morning. Keep your head on a swivel, portaling and signing day and all that stuff. Be a busy day mañana. So appreciate it. Keep hope alive, everybody.
For Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Thanks for joining us. As always, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. We hope to see you back here for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.